This is a channeled message about how we can work with our imagination to accelerate our desires, our manifestations coming into our life. And these are going to be insights from a client session, but she gave me permission to share, so it'll support you on your journey as well. So you're going to want to save this video so you can come back to it in the future. And I'm going to be saying this over you as it is your own reading, so it goes in your subconscious at a more expansive level. I'm also going to be reading from my notes so I stay on track. Okay, so when I went into your energy field, I saw a koala bear, which was so lovely because that was my grandmother who raised me's favorite type of animal. I saw a koala bear, and koala bears in shamanism represent relaxing, enjoying the moment, and going with the flow of nature. So this season that's coming up, higher self is saying, hey, we need to chill out a little bit. Okay, koala bears sleep up to 20 hours a day. Not saying that you need to sleep up to 20 hours a day, but maybe you need to catch up on some sleep. But this next season, we need to take it easy with ourselves. You and I are looking at a eucalyptus tree because that's what koala bears eat. And we saw this mama koala bear and her little babies. And we're like, aw, you represent the koala bear mama, even if you're a male. Okay, it's just like nurturing energy. And all of the babies are the persons that you came here to support in the collective, your sweet angel babies. Then you turned to me and looked at your hands and said, I think my body is getting to recalibrate. So basically kind of going through a quantum jump, not only with your life, but also your physical health. I said, oh yeah, what do you think's going on? And he showed me a pyramid, but instead of it being like a pyramid in Egypt, it was a food pyramid, you know, like back in the day where we would see the graphics. So the way that it works, there's grains on the bottom like bread, and then fruits and vegetables, milk, dairy, cheese, meat and fish, and then fats and oils. And you said I needed to work on the root, that's safety first, so that I do not feel alone. So with the grains, that's also often represented by bread, which is a very hearty sustenance type of food. So that is a karmic cycle that you have been coming up out of not being super hyper independent or hyper vigilant. We've been working on trusting other people and creating a community around us. He said, I need to start working on the root before I can do the rest of the system. Basically talking about like your chakras, but your life as a whole. Because it's really important to feel a sense of belonging so you don't feel alone in the world, and then everything else is a lot easier. And this is when I saw you in a what I would think would be like a canoe, like a rowboat almost, and you were sitting in the middle of the lake and it was pitch black. Okay, and you had your eyes closed and you started spinning in the boat and you kept going faster and faster. I was like, whoa, let's slow down before you get nauseous. Because I was getting nauseous watching you spin. I asked, what are you doing? And you said, attuning to the quantum field through longitude and latitude points. So what you meant by this, let's say that somebody is looking for a past life. That's a very specific point in the quantum field that you are attuning yourself to get that information. So it's kind of how our neural networking pathways, if you were to look at a scan, that's kind of how I would see the quantum field of all of these different bits of information that you can align yourself to. I asked, well, what are you trying to find? And it's almost like you forgot what you were looking for, and that's kind of like why you were spinning your wheels. So, well, let me help you. So I get in the canoe with you. I said, we're going to double up our psychic powers, and we put our hands in each other's. And you know Charles Xavier from X-Men, where he kind of puts the helmet on so that he can amplify his abilities and find the X-Men? That's kind of what we were doing with one another. This is when I saw green pine needles, almost like from a pine tree, but they had blueberries on them. Not like regular blueberries, but berries that are blue. I've seen those before. And they were juniper berries, which are really good with your immune system and antioxidants. So, oh, do you need to go forest bathing? Basically, that's when you go deep out into the woods where you really can't hear any noise pollution like cars or people, so you can fully immerse yourself with Mother Gaia and the animal spirits and receive a lot of healing. This is when you turned into an elven person, like an elf, a forest elf. You walked up to the juniper tree and put your head on it and said, I can hear the healing properties inside of the tree. Trees have been around for a very long time, our ancient friends, and all of the different types have different healing properties. So you are attuning yourself to that field of consciousness. What I would recommend is listening to some Celtic Reiki practitioners who specialize in trees. The woman on Tube, her name is Sarah Louise Tilsey. She has a lot of videos available. This is when I felt your throat chakra opening up and we needed to give it some assistance. I was like, can we go in your throat chakra and see what's going on? You say yes. So go inside, and it almost looked like snow was falling from the sky, but it wasn't snow. I said, what are those filaments? I brought out a microscope so I could put one underneath. And I said, you know what? That's too scientific. I need something that's more naturalistic. I took one of the filaments and placed it on the... Do you see that? Oh my God, it was like that. And I placed it on the juniper tree. And the tree started to do a diagnostic, started lighting up all of the bark. It was so funny because it spit out a piece of paper, which paper comes from trees, but it spit out a piece of paper. Like you would get like a diagnostic chart so I could see what was going on. I'm reading the paper and it says you have a cord of misgivings, an energetic cord of misgivings in your throat chakra. So the definition of misgivings is a feeling of doubt or apprehension about the outcome of something. And that can be one thing, or it can be, life in totality. I looked at you and said, what does that mean to you? You said, will I be able to? But you didn't finish your sentence. I said, will you be able to what? Then we started falling down a cavern. If you ever seen in a cartoon movie where it just keeps going down like forever and ever and ever, you're just continuously falling. Or if you've seen base jumping, where people jump off with like this little bitty parachute that they wear, but we didn't have a parachute. We're just free falling. And you were flat with your face down towards the cavern. And, and I was sitting there crisscross applesauce next to you and was drinking a cup of tea. You said, why are you so calm? Obviously, because this is a scary situation. I said, some people have learned to catch themselves when they are falling down the hole. Now, the hole is representative of your ego throwing up all of these fears and doubts and worries when you're thinking about your manifestations or your desires. And then there's some people that are like, oh, I know what this is. This is an illusion right now. My ego is trying to keep me safe, but this is not the truth. I said, well, how do you think you can stop yourself from falling? And you start flapping your arms, like trying to fly. And I said, wait, you don't need to do all that. Okay, that's a lot of external force. That represents doing things on the 3D, trying to change our circumstances, which, not saying action is a bad thing necessarily, but that's not what is going to stop this process from happening, of falling into fear and doubt. So what we can do instead is I want you to close your eyes. Okay, that is an indicator of trust in self. I want you to close your eyes and imagine a different scenery. Then all of a sudden you and I were on top of a Ferris wheel, like at an amusement park, and you know how you sit in the seats that are inside of kind of a box? Well, we're at the very top. You know how it rotates? I said, oh, this is a very interesting choice. Why did you pick this? Because that was coming from your subconscious. And you said, well, it's really high up and it's safe. So obviously the top of a Ferris wheel is kind of the opposite of falling down a pit, and being in that container keeps us from, falling again. I said, well, this is better than where we were at before, but it's still letting me know we're not trusting our own mind. So what if we were on a magic carpet instead? Kind of like from Aladdin. So you and I went up in the sky and we're sitting on the magic carpet. So how do you feel now? And you said, oh, I can feel the wind on my face, because we couldn't feel that in the Ferris wheel container. That comes with a feeling of liberation, of not feeling constrained or boxed in. So, well, do you feel safe? And you said yes, because if I fall, the magic carpet will save me, kind of like in Aladdin where he falls and the carpet saves him. I said, okay, well, what do you think the magic carpet is made out of? Who made the carpet? And he said, oh, me. I said, yeah, you did that with your own mind. I didn't pick the scenery, you did. I said, what if there was no magic carpet? It's just you and I standing in the sky with one another. And then that happens. So we're way up in the sky, just kind of standing there looking at one another. He said, oh, I'm not falling. And I said, no. I said, this is all a product of your imagination and what's coming up from your subconscious. Well, let's go into the greater symbolism here. Sometimes people are afraid to utilize their imagination for multitudes of reasons. We have been told that it's not real, that that's silly, that if you are up there kind of in the ethers, the astral, which is kind of different from your imagination, but the demons are going to get you, or you're going to get lost up there. You know, there could be a whole myriad of societal, cultural, religious programming. But in fact, imagination is what brings your desires in, because that is where everything is birthed from. That is where ideas of things come from, and then we get to experience them on the 3D. But oftentimes people are like, well, I think about so many negative things that if I get in my imagination, then those things are going to happen. So that is where trust building exercises come in. Okay? If we are not ready to utilize our imagination yet for our manifestations, we need to kind of be going on journeys within ourselves, like this one here, like a quest, a vision quest, to showcase, hey, if something spooky, scary comes up, I can pivot at any time. Kind of like with the cavern that we were falling into. Oh, I can make it a Ferris wheel. Oh, I can make it a magic carpet. Oh, I can just be standing in the sky and I'm totally okay. I am safe. It's empowering your mind that you are in the driver's seat as the higher consciousness, as the spirit, and not your ego. Your ego is giving you all of those fears and doubts and worries as a safety mechanism. It doesn't want you to step outside of your comfort zone or experience a new life. It wants to stay in the known. Well, this is where going on meditative journeys without the attachments of manifestations, okay, just fun, whimsical, exciting times, showcases, hey, we are going to focus on positivity and optimism, but even if something negative comes up, that doesn't mean anything about me. That's just that mechanism. We can pivot in a new direction at any time, and only positive things manifest for me. It doesn't matter how many negative thoughts that I think, those are not real. Those are an illusion. Those are falling down the cavern. Okay, I can be up in the sky at any moment. This is something I actually experienced at the beginning of my psychic channeling journey. I was so nervous about being in my own mind that I went out and found a woman. Her channel is New Horizons. You can find her on Tube, and she has thousands of children's meditations going to Dragonland and Unicorn Land and meeting with the fairies and going on a pirate treasure adventure. Because if I could listen to somebody else taking me through an exploratory experience, I could help my inner children feel safe, that one day we could do that on our own. And look at us now doing it for other people. So if you've had some fears running like this, I want you to know you're not the only one. Lots of us have been through that, and there are shortcuts that you can take to help you feel more confident in utilizing your imagination to bring in your desires. I would love to hear in the comments if any of the symbolism was a synchronicity for you, like the koala bear, the boat in the lake, the elf, the cavern, the Ferris wheel. If you really enjoy channeled messages like these and you want to feel more confident in working with your imagination to bring in your desires, I have a 21-day challenge that's coming up. We start on December the 1st. You can register in my bio. It's called Say Yes to Magic, and we are reawakening the enchantment in everyday life. I would absolutely love to have you there. Again, Say Yes to Magic, the 21-day challenge. And as always, I'm wishing you and your inner children an absolutely